But
Sorry. Let's
and
just get moving.
I've actually started recording. I've just
Oh,
been recording that whole thing.
great.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Mind Heist, episode 133.
Ooh.
Now let's get straight into it, Mohamed. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
You said you're going back to uni.
No.
What was the thing you were going to tell me, but then you left it till now?
Was it? Remind me.
It was
Jog my
something to do
memory.
with medical school.
Oh yeah, so I was playing on my PlayStation, wasting time as I usually do, with a friend of mine who's he might listen to the podcast. I don't know, but he's a doctor, and it was interesting because somehow the conversation went to like like going back to uni and studying medicine, right? And like that's like my dad's dream for me. All right, he's always wanted me to do that, and obviously my dad's quite sick and stuff. So like he kind of, when he said that, he kind of hit like a nerve in my sort of childlike brain, and got me all like interested in trying to do this without obviously thinking of what it takes to do it, right? And then I realized obviously there's like graduate entry programs for people that already have degrees, but each university that does them is quite specific in its requirements. So you need to have particular A levels or not particular A levels. You know, for example, some might have a requirement that you have science-based A levels. Some might not require that, and vice versa.
And this is for medical school specifically.
This is for medical school specifically, you know, and obviously I tracked down one particular place that would allow me to do it. And then I looked at the exams that you have to do. And it's like, there's like a UCAT exam or a GAMSAT exam. And there's a third one, I don't know, but each uni does a different one. And like, you know, the barriers are quite hard. Like, so for example, for these exams, some of them, some universities only offer 40 places a year, right, that they'll accept. So 40. Not only that, but the exam itself isn't necessarily like a pass or fail. It's more of a, this is your score, and now you are matched against everyone else who took the exam that year, okay? So you could do really well, for example, in the exam, but if everybody else has done really well, you're still kind of screwed.
So they want the top whatever
Yes.
percent of people, yeah.
Absolutely. And also, the worst part, I think, of it is that your result for that exam is only valid for that year. So if you don't get into that university that year, you have to try all over again. So when I sort of stacked it up, I looked at obviously the price because you have to pay for all of it again. I looked at the fact that the only university that I could really go to was probably Nottingham, and based on my circumstances, right?
Yeah.
And also there's only like 40 places I think that they were taking that year. And also, bro, I'm married with kids, bro. Like, you know. Because I kind of thought, oh, if it was in London, I could stay with my in-laws. You know, I could do bits and bobs that way. Do you know what I mean? Like all these sort of, and then ultimately, like I thought it was really interesting and stuff. And you know, my mum always used to say, "Klem al-lil medhun bizibda." Like any talk that you have at night is like, I don't know, it's an Arabic expression. It's like buttered, right? So it's kind of like slippery talk. It's talk that you don't really mean what you're saying at night, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I woke up the next day and I was like, do you know what? This is just me trying to live out my dad's dreams for me at this late stage in his life. This isn't very realistic. However, for some people it is. You know, I was looking up people online who were, you know, mechanics at age 40 and then made a career change. You know, other people that had done crazy sort of career changes into medicine. And ultimately, I realized it is sinking a lot of money into something that I don't really need to do.
Bro, I'm thinking, when you're saying all this, I was like, I rate this guy. He went actually far with the process. I would have thought about it for like 2 seconds and then stopped there.
Well, it's about the enthusiasm, I suppose, that my friend had. He was very much like, because on the call, I was just like, oh, nah, I can't do that. And he's like, what do you mean you can't do that? Of course you can do that, blah, blah, blah. And he's got this very, you know, can-do attitude, which I respect, you know, I really respect. I like having those kinds of people around me because they do have a positive influence on me. However, you know, obviously he didn't do the graduate entry. I'm assuming he kind of went the traditional route. But it, you know, I never knew it was an option. I think that's what was interesting. I never knew it was like a way in. And I think for a lot of people that do have degrees that aren't necessarily, you know, what they want to do in their life. You know, a lot of people go to uni and get a degree and then they're like, oh, now what? And then also I think academic education at that level is more suited to, you know, someone who's a bit older, right? If I went back to college now, for example, or university now, I feel like I would, after living life a little bit, you know, I think I would do a lot better now at this age than I would have back then. I think there is this sort of ignorance and this immaturity that comes with with academic education. You know, a lot of people online were saying, when I was looking at medicine stuff, they were saying, oh, true medical school shouldn't start until you're 28. And I was like, oh, funny that, I'm 28 right now.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, it makes sense. You know what? If you think about it, yeah, like obviously I don't know everything about this, but it seems like doctors who've been through that whole process, they actually, the whole process filters out bad people, basically, like people who are not serious or dedicated or committed. Like when I think about it, you know, I was not someone like in my A levels, I didn't do any sciences or maths, right? But if I was to go and do medicine now, or even then, I would only do it if I like, for the sake of Allah, like to be some sort of positive force in the world, because
absolutely.
Money wise, it's not worth it, because many doctors actually don't earn like that much. Like, it's good, but it's not a lot. And also, it's like 7 years in uni, right? Versus I could do 3 or 4 years of law school and make loads more money probably, right? So if you just want money, it filters out the people that just want money, because it's like longer and harder, right? And so you end up with a good bunch of people in the end who actually become doctors. That's my guess anyway.
Absolutely. And I think especially for this sort of graduate program, I think...
How many years would that be if you entered as a previous graduate, Yanni? Maybe 5?
Yeah, I think it was 5, you know. I think it was around 5, although it probably differs from place to place. Although there was some I can't remember who I was talking to, but someone mentioned, you know, there is some funding available or something like that. I don't know. I think ultimately I was just kind of surprised that there was routes like that. And I've seen those routes in other professions, you know. I've seen that in policing, where if you've got a degree already, you can sort of fast track into, because a lot of policing now is geared towards attaining a degree. Like 2 of the popular routes into becoming a police officer, for example, one of them is it's like an apprenticeship. So you do a 3-year sort of course / probation period. During that 3 years, you're attaining a degree and also getting paid full time. So you don't have to pay for that. However, if you already have a degree, you can do, it's not an apprenticeship necessarily. You get a diploma at the end of it, but your probation is shorter. So it's 2 years and then you're qualified. But everything's moving towards that degree thing. So I think it's interesting, because for a lot of people, they might have, at least I did, you feel like you're locked into that degree once you've got that degree. You know, you're like, oh, that's it now. I'm stuck in this field of work. But actually, there's so many opportunities now that are opening up. All they want is to be able to see that you've attained a degree and you can study and apply yourself at a degree level. Not specifically due to that course.
Yes, you know? Exactly. Like you could, even like you've done bachelor's degree, you could do a master's in a whole other field. And assuming it's not a field like, you know, engineering that would require like, what's it called? BEng or whatever, bachelor's in engineering. As long as it's not like that, you can actually switch entire field. So if I, for example, graduated in geography, if I then do master's degree in, I don't know, let me think. Like maybe it would have to be humanities subject. Like if I did a master's degree in history or in sociology or something like that, I can just change my entire thing. Like what I could have done actually is, part of geography is GIS, geographical information systems. You can actually probably there might be a route into like a data science through geography, right? By doing maybe a 1-year master's, right?
Yes.
And so 1-year masters will actually get you to change your entire field kind of thing. So you're right, bro. Yeah, I didn't think about that too much. Obviously, I've done too many degrees, but I wanted to reflect on just uni and degrees and this and that, because people are going to uni. They're starting uni. I think they started 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to kind of reflect on it. And I want to go to what you said, which was, if you went to uni now, it would probably be different. Do you think, so you think you'd be better at it?
I think, yes, I would be better. I would be better at any sort of education now. And I remember experiencing that when, as early as college. So I did 2 years at college, and then I had to extend my stay at college and do an extra year just to get the grades I wanted to get into a local university. But that third year at college, it was a year where I was older than everybody there. Everybody that started with me had already left, and the grades I was getting just because of those two things was so much better, right? So much better. So I remember just thinking, like, this is it. The key to studying really is to obviously minimize your distractions, to be a bit more mature, a bit more mature than your peers. Although you need to be consciously more mature. Like, I knew that those people in my year, that in my classes, were younger than me because I'd recognized them from when I was younger, from when they were younger. Sorry, in different years. Obviously, university. When you're in university, it fluctuates. There's all sorts of people at uni, different ages. But just having that life experience first, maybe not going to uni straight away, is a good idea. Just to basically, they talk about gap years, right? And like, I know my sister is taking a sort of gap year at the moment, but they talk about it in terms of like, oh, have a break and do you know what I mean? Have fun and sort of thing. But actually, I think what's important is to find out in that year what you really want to do, because in that year, I think you should apply yourself in terms of money, jobs, learning about money, learning about a bit of independence, learning how to traveling as well,
or living with family, maybe stuff like abroad, yani.
Absolutely, there's so many things that you can learn, and then you expose yourself to just alternative pathways, because I think I like many other people were very locked into a primary, secondary, college, university, job, right? And now, like, those sort of experiences I've had now, and like many people do, you think, oh, I could have done this differently, I should have done that differently. But not even that. I was talking to my dad about this a couple of days ago, and I was just like, and we speak about this a lot on Mind Heist, but just like having like financial fortitude, having the ability to know how to like what to do with your money, like how to save it, how to invest it, how to pay taxes, do you know what I mean? All this stuff.
Tax efficient.
How to be tax efficient, exactly. All these things that I told my parents, I was like, they should have taught us this stuff instead of sex education every single week in these PHSE, whatever they're called, classes. I said, listen, they were teaching us about flipping, excuse my French, but how to like put on condoms and stuff like that. This was literally what they were teaching us. These were life studies, right? So all life revolved around was safe sex, right? And don't do drugs.
Yeah.
What about like how to pay taxes, how to pay like, do you know what I mean? How to, I don't know, flip all these other things that they could have done. How to save your money, how to
budget,
how to budget, how to buy a house, how to all of these things, These are valuable life skills.
Yes.
Honestly, I think loads of people at that age would have benefited from that early on. But there was none of that. You wouldn't find it anywhere.
It's kind of like, opening a company is an adult thing. It's not for you, right? Or even like how the political system works, for example, as well, how voting works, how all this stuff is like, no, that's like not for you, but somehow, sex education is for you. It's weird, isn't it?
It's like, oh, you're all going to have sex as kids, so you all need to know this all the time. But all the other stuff, you have to actually go and study it actively. Like, oh, I have to take business to learn about business. I think there should be a level of business studies for everybody, because obviously all they want to produce is employees, right? As in the system, so to speak. But actually, I think it benefits everybody, even the employees, to know how a company works, because at least that way you can be efficient. You can, give better ideas to management. You can become middle management. You can become supervisors. So, all of that aspect, and that stuff always intimidated me, right? Taxes, independence, starting companies, that just intimidated me so much, because I had no experience of it. I didn't know anybody firsthand that does it, and I wasn't taught it at school. So like when it came to like making Pure XI, bro, I was just like, the creative side of it was great, but the business side of it, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Right? I had no idea. And I had to ask people for help. I had to ask yourself for help. I had to ask other friends of ours for help that had that experience. And still it was like very daunting. And then moving on, obviously, to money management, bro, like, all I knew was money was there to be spent, and saving money was to save it to spend on something, you know, imminently. So short term to mid term things, you know, I save for a, you know, I don't know, shopping spree to get some clothes, or midterm would be like, save for a holiday, or save for, but that's all it was. Money was just there to be spent, right? But I always had it in my mind that I wanted a family, subhanAllah. You know, I always wanted a family. But there wasn't a connection there between prepare yourself for a family by saving and investing, and obviously getting to that stage of having a family and being able to benefit from that. But there's going to be a lot of Muslims, bro, no doubt, that at uni right now, or going to go to uni, and they want to start a family as soon as they can, bi'idhnillah. You know, lots of Muslims that are thinking like, I want to get married, I want to do this, and I want to do that.
Yeah.
But there is no sort of preparation in that way. The only preparation they're thinking of is the go to uni, get the degree, and then hopefully get a job afterwards.
Yeah. And this kind of goes down to the whole purpose of education. Like right now, it's very much go to uni to get a job. But before it wasn't like that, you know. Before, and I'm talking about a long time ago, it was like go to uni to become cultured, go to uni to learn about the world, and it was obviously something more for the richer people. But as Muslims, like what are we like focused on? What do we want? And you know, in Islam, I think a lot of people, they divide knowledge into like Islamic knowledge and secular knowledge, right? But as far as I know, the actual, like if you go to actual Quran and Sunnah, what is mentioned is useful knowledge and non-useful knowledge, right? And obviously we know that Islamic knowledge is useful. We know that, to know Allah, to know His Prophet ﷺ, to know His Sharia, this is useful, no doubt. But then out of the quote unquote secular knowledge, what is useful? Much of it is useful, and then some of it is not useful. But if we see it from that paradigm where it's like, I want useful knowledge, yeah, then we won't see uni as just like, yeah, let me go get a job. It's like, okay, let me get useful knowledge. Like, and thinking of useful knowledge or beneficial knowledge, it makes you wonder about, okay, if it's going to be useful, what does it have to be useful for? And then it makes you think about your goals, your objectives, and what you want to do. And then it makes something like, you know, a lot of people, they might, you know, shy away from doing degrees in humanities, for example, because it might not lead as directly to a job or to a high paying job. But if you're thinking, I want useful knowledge, then you might specifically go into humanities. For example, many people, they know like Mohamed Hijab, he has background in philosophy or in history and these different things. And those things don't lead to jobs very well, but they've helped him in his dawah. So it's definitely beneficial knowledge, right?
Absolutely.
And this is just a different way, and the way I think Muslims should think about it. It is a little bit of a privileged thing, like, oh yeah, you've got the ability to go to uni just for the sake of learning. I don't have that. But you know, there are many ways to approach it. Wallah, like if you think of, I'm gonna, whatever, I before I even get to the age of uni, I'm already like looking into business. I'm already flipping stuff on eBay or whatever.
Yes.
And I can work that way and then do a degree just for a specific, you know, cause, rather than it having to lead to a job, or finding some degree to do which, even if you don't get a job through it, it has other benefits for whatever goals you have in life. Yeah. You know,
I was going to say, I think there is a lot of stuff now looking back at uni that, you know, there are going to be jobs that, let's say you have a dream to be, I don't know, a doctor again, right? Because that's quite obvious one. You have to go to uni to do that.
Yeah.
Like, there is no alternative. But there's a lot of other stuff when you talk about, you know, beneficial knowledge that you absolutely do not need to go to university for. If you wanted some sort of qualification, there's probably alternatives. But once again, you only need that qualification to get to a specific job. If it's not for a specific job and it's for your own benefit to learn it, there are so many different sources that you can go to get that knowledge from. You know, something as simple as like Skillshare, for example, to learn something, right? If you want to learn coding, you can go here. If you want to learn Photoshop, you can go here, graphic design or whatever.
And these things you can do on top of your degree.
Absolutely, you can do them on top, or you might not need to do the degree at all if that's where you wanted to go in the first place, right?
Yeah, sure.
So why pay that much just for a piece of paper that isn't going to make a difference to your job prospects? You know, like there's some people, for example, that study graphic design at university, right? And yes, I can appreciate maybe the theory that's behind a lot of that, but as
Yeah.
far as the practical side of it, how much free material is there, and then how many things that you can pay, just for tutorials or Skillshare or whatever it is, lessons online, because with something like that, the proof is in your portfolio. It's what you can actually produce,
Yeah.
and that's part of your application, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you came to a big graphic design company, whatever it is, marketing company, whatever, and you showed them bits of paper, and then someone else showed them, this is the work I can do, they're going to go with the work guy.
You gave them your
every
essay
time.
and they gave a portfolio. Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of times I think university will teach courses that are the best thing you can get out of them is just the ability to teach those courses again, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
theory begets theory in a way.
When practical work is always going to trump it in terms of employment prospects.
Yeah, and I know that for myself because I actually went to whatever. I don't know if I call it corporate. I don't know what the definition of corporate is, but the feeling was corporate, right? I got a corporate job with no degree in marketing. I just went to them and I said, yeah, I've done this, I've done that. And by the way, I thought about your business and the role that, you've advertised. And if I got the job, I would do this.
Yeah.
And then they gave me the job.
Fun enough. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. I had a degree, but nothing to do with marketing. Just from the interview. I don't know why they gave me the interview in the first place. Maybe my cover letter was good. I can't remember. Maybe my cover letter showed that I'd done this and that in marketing. But the point is, I had no qualification in marketing. And so I'm not saying everyone can do that, but it's definitely possible. But even like what you were just saying about graphic design, let's say you want to do graphic design, you can actually do graphic design freelance and do a degree in another topic which might complement graphic design, or it might be for your dawah objectives, it might be for your whatever kids tarbiyah object, it could be anything, right? You could do flipping. I remember one guy, I always remember him. He did a degree in Chinese medicine and I think it's called homeopathy, right? I think that's how you say it. It's like natural remedy, basically. So he's done a degree in that. Now, I think what he does for a living is like hijama and these kind of healing things. I don't know. I think he's also an English teacher as well. So a lot of people are doing this these days where they're kind of combining things, aren't they? Like you might be a graphic designer, but also you do a bit of Uber Eats or, like...
Of course, yeah.
Many, actually, alhamdulillah, a lot of different opportunities to do things. Not always, doesn't have to be full time. So you have a bit of flexibility. But I guess what we're saying overall is the thinking out the box is like more possible than ever before, perhaps. And while you're at uni, you can do other courses, and even if you're not at uni, you can learn many good skills.
This is it. Yeah, it's the accessibility and knowledge, and I think that's what's so profound now. Like, I remember recently thinking how interesting it would be to learn to code. Right, I wasn't actually going to do it, but I just looked up stuff like that in terms of courses and in terms of stuff like that, and it was just so quick and
all these
easy
boot
to find.
camps, right? Okay, I'm recording again. So you were saying like there's so many opportunities for learning these days. Oh yeah, you're saying about coding boot camps and stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's easy to look up anything that you're interested in and just get a quick. I mean, you can go on YouTube and get crash courses for anything, ranging from far as history to like coding, or you could go specific and pay a premium on like Skillshare and other sort of platforms to learn something more specific on a course basis.
Even Coursera is more like what businesses use for their employees to do courses on, and it's like, I think the courses are free, but you pay if you want a certificate that you did it, right? So that's a place where I think it's like very polished. It's not like someone in their bedroom making it, which is not always bad, but it's like more polished and more maybe academic style. So yeah, there's so much out there, but it comes down to really understanding perhaps like your objectives in life, like in general. Like if you're thinking about, if you don't have any clear objectives, then it's like, okay, I'm probably just going to be autopilot. All right, I'm just going to be autopilot. I'll go uni, do a degree that will get me a job and kind of follow that. If however you know you know, you've got an idea of what you want to do, then it's like, okay, how do I get the knowledge I need to do that, to accomplish that? So and where does knowing objectives and all this come from? I think it's the way things are now is difficult to expect an 18-year-old to have that kind of idea, isn't it? And that's where traveling comes in a lot. That's where, like, when I say traveling, I don't mean like flipping hiking in the Himalayas. I mean, like, even it could be just visiting family from quote unquote back home, or going to other parts of the country you already live in, or, you know, all this stuff I feel helped me grow so much.
I think something you've mentioned before, which is really important, is also having like a social circle made up of people that are much older than you or older than you. I think surrounding yourself with people that are more mature, more established, and maybe even, if you can, you know, financial role models, like people who are a bit better than you or better off than you. I think that has such a crazy impact, because when you're surrounded with people with the same sort of circle as you, there's nothing to measure success by, and you just feel like you're doing fine, right?
Yes,
you feel like, oh, everything's fine. I'm fine. We're all just in the same boat here. But you know, I can imagine if I was sat with people that, you know, were a bit more accomplished, mainly because they're older, but also they've had more life experience and stuff, then I'd be like, yeah, oh, I want a bit of that, or how did you do that? Let me see, let me follow that sort of path. And I definitely lacked that in my life until like I started practicing. When I started practicing and surrounding myself with obviously Muslims who you couldn't really pick and choose who they were, but they were all sorts of styles and colors and shapes and sizes and whatever. That's when I started seeing people doing different things, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So it's really important. I think the masjid is a good place to start, you know, and I think if you're not really attending the masjid, that's a community hub, isn't it? It's a way to get connected to people that a lot of other communities don't have.
And the only thing that you have to have in common is just be Muslim.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Absolutely. Salam alaikum, and that's it, you through the door. You know, you don't have to force it with anyone, ideally, anyway. But no, I think it's really interesting. And I think even like this podcast, bro, there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are younger than us, less experienced than us, haven't actually got to the stages of uni or whatever. And they'll listen to this sort of stuff. And I'd like to think that they think that we're, you know, we're brothers in Islam, so to speak. And they might see what we're saying, and it might actually influence them in a positive way, you know, because I mean, if you've been listening to us since we've started, it's been 4 or 5 years, a lot has changed, you know, from working retail to, you know, working in law enforcement to getting married and having kids and God knows whatever changes we've had, and you're making hijrah and you're writing a book and all these steps, right? And there's going to be some people that are like 5 years behind us in sort of those stages of their lives, right? So actually you could look at some of the experiences that we've had and some of the guests that we brought on the show, on the podcast, and think, oh, which kind of route do I want to take? I definitely did not expose myself to anyone older than me when I was going through that, you know, those stages. I very rarely sort of interacted with anyone older than me, and anyone who was older than me later on, I'd already at uni by then, you know. I didn't start practicing until I was 18, so I didn't start mixing with anyone outside of my age group until after that. But bro, ultimately, don't want to live in regrets. I don't want to say if only, because that's not becoming of us. But actually, I want to, and I wrote this on Twitter the other day, but like a thought experiment of, I'm trying to imagine myself as actually being 80 years old, and I've just been sent back in time to the age of 28, and I need to make different choices. So what choices am I going to make with that in mind, right? And that's the way I'm trying to live my life now, because it's very easy to say, I mean, bro, here's an example, right? I just got a notification as we were talking. I get random like news notifications, but apparently Bitcoin has hit an all-time high just now, right? So it's easy to think, if only, right? If only 10 years ago, right? If only 10 years ago I was just putting a bit of money away, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? But actually, no, what if I just think that I'm actually 80 years old and I've just been sent back to the year 2021, right? And I'm going to make those choices I didn't make back then. That's the way you've got to think about it. You've got to think about the next 10, 20 years and what you can start doing from now, as opposed to thinking of the 20 years have just gone and that the ship has sailed. There's always boats and opportunities leaving the port every single day, right? But we always miss them because we're thinking too much of the past.
Poetic, bro.
Oh, absolutely
poetic. Yeah, definitely, bro.
Come on, bro. Here's a question.
Yeah,
Let's say the same applies to you. You're actually
yes,
80 years old, bro. You've
yes,
just been sent back to
yes,
the year 2021, bro.
yes.
Just been sent back, and this is all for the listeners as well. What choices are you going to make differently?
I was trying to get my head around what you mean,
The
but it's
concept.
like, what regrets would I have that I cannot make? I mean,
Things that you're doing now that you know that
yeah.
when you're 80, you'd be like, I wish I didn't. I wish I
I
did.
think it's mostly like, for example, yeah, I've got this idea in my head. I can do about 3 things at a time in
Yep.
terms of like focuses. I think if I can find a way to do those three, like just be like focused and efficient with my time, you know, like not waste time I don't mean not waste time in terms of watching movies. I mean, when I'm sitting down to do something, do it in less time. Okay. If I could get myself to do that, then I wouldn't be limited to 3 things at once. I could squeeze in a 4th thing, and just that one fourth thing could make a big difference. Like, it could be memorizing Quran, right? So it could be like, if I can, basically what I'm kind of talking about is like focus levels, concentration, discipline. I think that would be a big one, because that would lead to me doing more each day or each week, which would then, I feel like I've got the objectives and the thing in place that if I just did the work over time, I don't think I would have regrets. But what I can see myself regretting is that, oh, you didn't have the discipline to like put in those hours. You didn't have the, you know, this and that. That's one thing. And I feel like that's also linked to spending time with my son. Like, again, if I was more efficient with my time, then earlier in the day, I would feel like, okay, I've accomplished enough on that side. Now I can accomplish on that side, like spending more time with my son or whatever. I say that as well because I know a lot of people regret that. And they do say like the first 6 years is so important for kids. So those are things that come to mind. Maybe also being more ambitious with certain acts of ibadah. Yeah, maybe that could also be one. So those are the 3 I can think of now. Did you have any specifics that you had thought of like that?
I think a lot of it is you know, I mean, in terms of financials, yeah, saving money, investing money, etc. But also, what I've started doing is like thinking of what the end result of a particular action or activity is going to be before I do it. Like, there's been times where, you know, it could be something as simple as entertainment, bro. There's been times where like I will embark on some sort of, I don't know, whether it's like a series of something or some sort of game or whatever it is, and like I know that this is going to take hours and hours, and then I first think like, what am I going to achieve at the end of this, apart from like a feeling of, am I even going to feel satisfied at the end of this? No, I'm not. So actually, I'm not even going to embark on that. Or if it's like a project that I'm doing where it's a piece of art or whatever it is, bro, I'm always trying to think of the end result way before, way before I embark on it, because then I'm gonna know whether it's actually worth that time. Because
I think
sometimes
that's called like second order consequences, second order, third order consequences. It's like you, for example, yeah, I was just talking to someone before this, we're speaking now, and he achieved some certain accomplishment, you know, really good accomplishment. So I was like, you should reward yourself. He's like, yeah, what could I do? What could I get? He's like, maybe I could get a new phone. Okay, so it's like he worked hard, he accomplished. Now let's say he buys the phone. What's the second order consequence of that? It's that he might accomplish less now. So he's got like a negative loop that he's just created for himself, where he achieves, then he rewards himself with something that stops achieving, then he achieves less, and then it's not good, right? But what if he rewarded himself with something that would help him achieve more, right? So whatever the, like you're saying, like you watch episode 1 of a show, the second order consequence is I'm going to want to watch more show, and then the third order consequence is I'm going to spend 20 hours watching the whole season. And that's, you know, so it's like,
you know, I only mentioned entertainment because it was the first thing that came to my head, but actually there's other things that are more relevant, which has been more prevalent, is like, so even just spending money in a particular way or eating in a particular way, right? So since obviously tracking calories, I've been very calorie conscious, right? And I'm quite conscious of like, you you know, should I have that? Like I look at something, and I know people say you can get a bit of a you know, an eating disorder or a complex about it, but actually it's the awareness that benefits me. And I think I don't feel like I'm getting an eating disorder. I think I'm just becoming more aware of how heavy something is on the plate, so to speak.
Hopefully,
Yeah. So I've noticed that even now, like I've had more days probably that I haven't been able to sort of track calories rigorously. For example, I've been in London for a few days. I was at my mum's quite often the weeks prior, and during those kind of days I struggle to sort of track what I'm eating, right? Even though that was the case, subconsciously I've obviously put it in my mind, right? Oh, that's a bit too much. Oh, I'm going to stop eating that. Oh, I'll order the salad, right? Stuff like that.
Yes.
And I weighed myself yesterday, and I'm the lowest I've been in years. Okay, still, like I'm lower than I have. I'm the lowest I've been since starting this journey, right? Which is great, which shows that it's starting to sort of work on a subconscious level. But then also with spending, right? So like the other day, you know, I got back from London. I was really tired. I already had 4 hours sleep the night before. Obviously, the family were hungry. And I thought, do you know what? Times like this, I usually just order a takeaway, and it's like 30 quid for all of us, right? And I was about to do it, and I was just like, how am I going to feel after that? I spend that money, like £30, which really you could do like quite an extensive shop from like a Lidl or Aldi for that, on one meal that I'm probably going to feel really disgusting eating it afterwards, right? So I kind of halted there, and I was like, no, let's just see what else we can whip up in the kitchen. So I did that. And I obviously made something. We were all satisfied, and we all went to bed full. And I was like, yo, that 30 quid, I'm put that somewhere else, you know? So I actually put it in my mind as if I had spent that 30 quid, but actually I just put that money elsewhere, you know, saved it or invested it, whatever. So it's kind of that kind of thing. It's like, think before you act in that way, and think about what the final result is. How many times have we all like just ordered something ridiculously priced, and then very shortly after you're like, oh, I don't know if that was worth it, you know? And I think there is a issue of like when I was younger, bro, when I was living with my parents and stuff, like ordering a takeaway, I know it's really simple, but for us that was like a big deal, bro. That was like a very like that was like a treat, you know? That was like, oh, we're getting takeaway, that's mad. I know it sounds really ridiculous,
bro. I remember that I remember that with McDonald's, which is really, considered like, you know, it's cheap, isn't it? It's something that people don't think twice about because it's cheap and this and that. But I remember when I was like, I don't know what age, you know, 10, 11, 12, whatever. If we went to McDonald's, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And we would never, you know, these places that are like Nando's level, we would never go there ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I now remember when I sort of grew into a bit of a more independent person, it just became so normal, just eating out all the time.
Yes.
And now looking back on it, like even now, like with Monzo and with, I'm sure other banks have it, like you can just see how much you've spent, you know, eating out all the time.
Yes.
And it's just like, what a waste, because do I really need to do that so prevalently and so often? I don't. And, you know, and it's all like this dopamine thing, and it's about satiating your desires all the time, etc. But yeah, balance, bro. It's about balance. It's about going back to the uni thing and going back to the taking the year out and life experience. Ultimately, you know, it's easy to say, oh, I should have, I could have. But I know that, you know, the way it is now is the way it would have always been. And the reason why I'm saying this now is because I've exposed myself to responsibilities firsthand. You know, as a youngster or a teenager, you haven't got the responsibilities to really feel what it's like to have to like look after others, you know, whether that's your wife, whether that's your kids, whether that's extended family. Like the drive to look after other people as a man doesn't come on its own. It has to, you have to be thrust into leadership to really, well, at least for me, myself at least, and I'm sure for a lot of people, you know, leadership, true leadership, you feel it when you're in the trenches with the people that you need to be responsible for. It's very hard, I think, to imagine, oh, in the future I'm going to have a wife and kids, so I'm going to work really hard because I love them so much. But you don't, because you don't know who they are. You know, so it's easy to get distracted with a hypothetical. You know, it's easy to get distracted if you're just thinking about some future, you know, concept of a family that you don't really know.
Bit of a side point. Do you think women are more proactive than men generally?
Proactive how? With what?
Like
anything.
They take action before something has to be done, instead of only doing it when it really needs to be done. They'll think ahead more, kind of thing.
It's hard. I think a lot of the women in my family are definitely proactive, and they want to. It may be that the tools and utilities they have at their disposal holds them back. But actually, like my mother, for example, like there's so many things that she wants to sort out, like now, you know. Whilst my father historically has kind of delayed things. You know, it could be something of like it could be as complicated as like official documents or sorting out some paperwork or whatever.
Yes.
You know, I remember my mum always saying to my dad, when are we going to sort this out? When are you going to sort this out? And my dad would always be like, oh, one day.
Well, that's the trend I see.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know if it's a gender thing or a personality thing.
Yeah.
But I did think that I'm saying this because you were kind of saying that men often need to like be in the trenches and feel the heat to then act, right?
That's probably why, yeah.
And I wrote that in my book, and then the sheikh was looking over it and he kind of commented on that, and he said, you know, is that really true, Yani? And I was thinking, well, I can't prove it. I can't prove it, but it just seems to be the case. And this is my theory, is like, that's why you know, Allah put us in that position where as soon as we've done the nikah, it's like, boom, you got to feed that mouth. You got to clothe that person.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, I mean, you know, I think, at least for myself, and I'm sure, you know, now that you say it, I do see others in the same way. But yeah, it is the hardest and most, you know, motivated sort of work we do is when the calamity is imminent, or where we have to sort of sort it out or else, right? But at the same time, I think women do have this sense of security, and they worry about, I think especially when they've got kids, I think they worry about their kids and their kids' future. So everything has to be, like for my wife, for example, she will always say to me, like, she just wants to know what the plan is, right? And sometimes I can't give her the plan because I don't know it myself. But that doesn't worry me like it worries her, all right?
Yes, yeah.
I don't worry about not having a plan because I'm like, oh, well, I'll figure it out when we get there, because I always have.
Yeah.
But my wife wants to know, like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we're doing, so I can prepare myself mentally, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's for every person or every woman, but
I feel that's kind of our job. Like, we have to give our wives a sense of security and stability, so they can focus on, for example, the kids, like we're talking about. If they have uncertainty about what's going on beyond their realm, they don't feel the comfort to then focus on their realm.
Well, this is it. Like, you it's kind of like you're steering a boat, right? You've got the boat, so you know that, like, if these big waves start coming, well, I'm the one steering the boat, so I'll figure it out.
Yes.
You know, I'll get ourselves into a good position.
Yes.
But if you're a passenger on that boat and you know there's a storm coming, you haven't got a clue. Like, you need to know, you need to rest assured that the you know, the captain of that ship knows what they're doing, right? Or has a plan for this.
Well, that's why you just have to get a general map and just draw a line on it and just give it to the passenger.
We're heading that way. All right. This is why they probably tell us, isn't it? When you go on a trip.
Yeah, the plane. It's like shows the planes thing. Imagine that's not even true.
Imagine, bro. Imagine like turbulence. This is it. Like, if you don't announce there's turbulence, people get worried. Do you know what I mean? We're just going through a bit of turbulence. Don't worry, everything's fine.
Point. Yeah.
Right. But if you didn't know that, you start panicking. Like, oh my God, is he lost?
Yeah. It's like, okay, it's not turbulence. We're actually crashing.
Wow. Oh, subhanAllah. No, that makes me think. It kind of reminds me of, like, I don't know if you've ever. I drive a lot all the time, but like, rarely am I the passenger of someone's car. But whenever I am, I just, especially at the front, bro, I just like, I get really like nervous and I start seizing up, and I know they've got control of the car, but it's like that. I can't trust them to do it because I'm used to driving that ship, you know? So it's like,
the most common thing is if you're sitting at the front, in the UK, if you're sitting in the front and you're not driving, what side are you on?
Left. You're on the left.
You're on the left side. So imagine they're driving in the left lane. You always feel like they're going to hit the curb.
Yeah.
But absolutely. They know that they're fine.
Yeah,
that's very common. Yeah.
This is it, and that's why you always get like drivers that are commentating on your driving all the time.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, you know. We want to be in control, so it's difficult not to. Especially, especially like, you know, may Allah bless my sisters. And when my sister passed her driving test, I'd already moved out, I think, by then. So the other day I got a bus because I had meetings in town. I got a bus to my mum's house, and then they offered to give me a lift home, right? Obviously, I'm not used to my sisters driving at all, and obviously I've seen them since they were little kids. I was there when they were born, so to speak. So seeing her now, like driving this car, I was just like, listen, I'm gonna go sit in the back. I sat in the back of the car, bro. I just put my head down. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I know she could drive. Obviously, she's good at driving, but like, I'm not used to that, you know?
Yes.
It makes me think, like, how are you going to be when your kids start driving, bro? Like, oh my God.
Yes.
But yeah, it's fun, man.
But you know, in terms of regrets, you're talking about financial thing. Two things I thought of is when I was in UAE, I was renting a car for like 2 years. Renting a car, not lease, renting a car. So I was spending a lot of money on that. And you know why? It was to avoid, you know, having to like buy a car and maintain a car, and then it breaks, and then this and that, right? But now that I think about it, it was not worth it, because, you know, the longer you own a car for, the more like financially efficient it is, if you like, right? So if I had just bought a car, I ended up buying a car later, but if I'd bought a car earlier, I would have been able to actually get an even better one, and it probably wouldn't have even broken down at all or anything. And I would have saved loads of money. So that's one silly thing. And I was just saying in my head, like, yeah, like I just really value convenience, so that's why I'm paying this and blah blah blah. But it's probably a lot of money wasted on that. And also with the eating out, bro, like, you know, I used to go to Dubai like once a week, or, you know, every couple of weeks, bro. That place just sucks your money, because
I can imagine,
bro, it's like it's like a culture, bro, where you're just in Dubai, you just go Cheesecake Factory, and Cheesecake Factory, and it's like, depends who you go with. Like, some people I go with, some friends, they're like frugal like me. They're like, look, let's get a burger and share it. You know? Other people, they're like, look, I'm getting the steak, and I'll have a soup, and I'll have a salad. What do you want? And you're just like,
So yeah, bro, you got to trade. Like I did this the other day, right? I was in London, and I knew my friends were going out, and they invited me to some restaurant, and then I knew my father-in-law was coming home before I left, and he was going to bring food. I was like, I could go now and eat with them, or I could just wait here and eat with my father-in-law. And obviously, out of respect, I waited and ate with my father-in-law. But because of that, when I went out with my friends, I was like, oh no, I'll just have a coffee, thank you. And that was it. And I was fine with that. You know, cost me a lot less. And I was like, I came out of there and I was like, do you know what? I feel good right now. Like, I made a good decision. And that sort of, you know, that self-satisfaction of like, I did the right thing right now. It's really, you know, it's unparalleled. It's a really good sort of feeling to have, and it just makes you feel like you're in control and you're not just like a slave to your emotions or whatever. So having that is really important, man. Having that, I think it boosts your sort of confidence to be able to say no, to put that down. You know, it's hard in the moment. Like, this is the thing, right? Think of the counter of these two sort of phenomenon. Like, if you indulge yourself, the indulgence, the satisfaction of that indulgence is for a moment, but the regret is long lasting. But then if you hold, you know, firm, the difficulty is for a moment, but then the satisfaction is long lasting, isn't it?
Yes.
So think of it that way, right? SubhanAllah.
And that's like the example of the dunya and the akhirah as well.
Absolutely. And ultimately, like, this is the key message I want to say about all these sort of quote unquote regretful feelings. You know, I don't want to, and I don't think anybody should beat themselves up too much about the past, if at all. You know, I think you would never reach the stage that you're at now with the knowledge you have if you hadn't made those mistakes. It's impossible, you know, whether it's money that you've lost in a bad investment, or money that or do you know what I mean, time that you've wasted, or whatever it is, you wouldn't come to the state you are at now without having made those mistakes. That's how we learn, right? But at the same time, you have to realize that, yes, this dunya is finite, and you could talk about the next 20 years, but you might not live to see the next 20 years. Am I right? So it's always reassuring to balance, obviously, your expectations, to manage your expectations. You know, I don't want to say that, oh, if I save this much now, in 20 years, I'm going to have this much. I might not live to see that. But what I am going to, you know, obviously experience is the afterlife. So actually, that is going to be your that's going to be your buffer between, you know, what's realistically may or may not happen, but also what's definitely going to happen, right? There's a definite there's an anchoring point where you can just say, Doesn't matter how bad it gets or how good it gets. Ultimately, I'm going to leave all of this behind. You know, whether it's your diet plan, whether it's your, you know, investment plan, whether it's your employment plan, whatever it is. Yes, it's all dunya, and we're all planning for the dunya, but ultimately, it's not that deep. That's the message, right? It's not that deep. You missed out on something, it's not that deep. You were successful at something, it's not that deep. It's about managing your expectations, because ultimately it's all going to get left behind, right? I'm seeing that obviously with my dad at the moment. My dad is very sick. May Allah grant him shifa. And like I said yesterday, I said to you before we recorded, yesterday I was with him and he's trying to sort out sort of, you know, his estate in Tunisia and writing out wills and all this sort of stuff, right? And I was just thinking, like, you know, his whole life has been this, trying to sort this stuff out, and now he's literally just giving it away, you know. And it's like, this is his life's work, and it's just suddenly he's trying to make it so it's just not his anymore. He's passing it on to the next person. And now it's only now that, like, I can sit and have a conversation with my dad about the akhirah, right? And I'm hearing it more out of his mouth, and I'm just like, wow, like, you know, may Allah have mercy on him, but he spent a lot of time thinking about dunya, like a lot of fathers do, and that's fine. But now I'm hearing more about the akhirah because he's reached that point, right? And it's like, wow, like, I need to be like that right now, without forgetting about my portion in this dunya. But at the end of the day, you know, right? So on that day, you'll be asked about the good things, or how you spent your money, or all of this sort of stuff. So as difficult as it is, I want to ask myself about the name now. You know, I want to ask myself about the money I've spent now, the food I ate now, because
the health you have,
the health, everything now, bro. Like, ask yourself now. And I'm not saying it's easy. I know I still waste time. I know I do. I know I'm gonna, you know, as hard as it, as much as we shouldn't, I know I'm going to think, oh, I wasted time doing this, I wasted time doing that. But what I want to do is at least minimize that stuff as much as possible. Be conscious of the end result, and do things that are going to grant me more long-term satisfaction. And you can only, like I said, everybody's got a situation where they can really flourish in that kind of arena. And for myself, it was, you know, taking on more responsibility. Taking on more responsibilities has enabled me to be motivated in a long-term fashion. For some people, they don't have that. And I think going right back, I know I said it before, but right back to that gap year, for example, that pre-uni thing, or you've just finished college, I think it's time to take more responsibilities out. I think it's time to offer yourself up to your family in terms of responsibilities, take on more things, you know. Don't worry, mum, I'm going to start paying that bill. I'm going to start paying that bill, dad. Is there anything I can do at the masjid? Is there any community work I can get involved in? You know, it's about being responsible for things. And I think ultimately as well, that is like a key. We spoke about this in terms of like youths and drug dealing and all this sort of stuff. Like, I want to give my kids responsibilities from an early age so that they have something that they feel like they're responsible for. And it teaches them about that responsibility, and they feel a bit more like men because I've entrusted them with something, and there's a sense of honor there. It's about nourishing all of those sort of feelings and sort of responsibilities. But what do you think, bro?
If you think about it, actually, you know, going to school, like a lot of parents, they didn't give their sons responsibility because they said their focus should be on education, right? But you know what? I don't think me or many people, you know, in school, we never thought of it as our responsibility. It was more like we just always went to school, so we just go to school, and we've been told we have to go to school, so we're going to school. We never chose to go to school, and I just don't think I saw it ever as a responsibility, man. And so it wasn't like, okay, I'm not expecting you to contribute to the household income or whatever. It wasn't replacing that with go to uni or go to school. It wasn't. It was just no responsibility.
Yeah.
So education doesn't replace responsibility. You still need whatever it is, whether it's cleaning the house, whether it's doing the garden, whether it's getting the shopping, whether it's paying the bills, whatever. You need something. And also, following from what you were just saying, everything can be done in micro things now. So if you want to give £100 a month to charity, we'll give £5 a month now. Like everything can be started now, and don't you dare like belittle that, because that will that like the hardest thing is doing it. It's not how much you do it, it's just doing it. So giving £5 or £100, it's closer than giving between giving £0 and £5, because once you give and you get in the habit of it, it becomes just a thing you do. You start to actually identify with it, and then it's just about, okay, now I got a raise, I'm going to turn the £5 to £10 and £10 to £15, or like I'm gonna, you know, pay the whatever. Let's say you live with your parents, you want to pay the whatever gas bill. Okay, the gas bill is £50. Okay, I can't give £50 now, but I'm gonna give £10 now. You know, I'm just trying to give these examples. Or like, I want to volunteer. You know, I really want to volunteer. Oh, but now I'm busy at uni. Yeah, okay, but volunteer half an hour a week.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
You know, and don't say, oh, but no one will probably let me volunteer. Like, look for it, put the effort in at least, so you can say you tried. I know actually one friend of mine, he actually does online dawah, where people are going to websites asking about Islam, and he chats with them. And he does that, I think, an hour or two a week. That's it. And it's really good, bro. He's like many shahadas coming through, many shahadas. And he's not, I don't think he even counted them, but he's like, many people, they come and they just want to take their shahada, or many people come, they want to actually attack Islam, and you know, we either, you know, they have ways of dealing with them, but there's many different people, and the point is, he's doing that 1-2 hours a week, you know, from home as well. So yeah, it's good to start everything in a micro way, so you don't have that excuse of, oh, I don't have the time or the money, because there's always a way to tone it down so it is doable.
This is it. And I think ultimately, bro, like, oh, my thing's gone. Sorry. Yeah, once again, bro, it is like you said, like a little bit is a lot more than, we beat ourselves up about not being able to do the big amounts, but actually this is like another form of sabr, isn't it? It's like sabr, not just in terms of hardship, but sabr in goodness, or the ability to attain goodness or do good things, right? Yeah. You know, yes, I can only give £1 now, right? By the way, we're talking about deeds here. We're not even talking about like investing money or whatever. We're talking about the ability to do good deeds. Yeah. This is an investment in your future, in your akhirah, so to speak. So even, like everybody says it, and I know I certainly fall into it. Oh, if I was so rich, I'd do so much. I'd build a masjid and I'd do this and right. That's great. Yeah. Awesome. I hope you can. And I say that to myself. I hope I can. And I always say, oh, I hope money doesn't change me. I hope I can still have this ambition to do good. Right. But maybe Allah will test you first with the small amounts before he tests you with that big amount, because maybe that big amount will lose you. And this is the training ground now. What percentage of your wealth are you going to give? How much time of your time are you going to dedicate to doing good stuff? If you can do what you can, that's better than you waiting until you're a millionaire, waiting until you're, you know, financially free, or wait until you have all the time in the world to do stuff, right? Some people wait until they're pensioners before they go and, you know, donate their time, so to speak, in good causes or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, this is part of the sabr element. I think you have to be patient on your own ability to do things and do what you can, instead of waiting for the big bucks, or waiting for, you know, the holidays or the time.
If you know your goals in life, and you're like mature enough to like be confident that it's the right thing, right direction, you should actually kind of be a bit impatient about it, I think.
I think there's an element of impatience that will then push you to take a few risks and be a bit, I don't know, my kids are screaming, it's really funny. Yeah. be a bit more sort of gung-ho about it. But, you know, risk also needs to be managed, you know. I think this, isn't it like what isn't it, like hastiness is from shaitan or something along those lines?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That is a hadith,
yeah. So it's like you've got to really think about.
That's what I'm saying. You have to be grounded in terms of who you are, and that's why I like the exercise from the 4-hour work week called dreamlining, where you think of, I think it's 3 things. You think of in a year or something, or 3 years or something like that. It's like, what do you want to have, what do you want to do, and something like, who do you want to be? And you like write those things down. Like just that half-hour exercise of doing that, it actually gives you this thing. Like I remember doing it years ago and thinking, I want to travel. Like I live back then I was like living in the UK, and I was like, from the UK I can fly to so many countries cheaply and all of that, like, let me just do it. Like, I can afford to do it now. Like, that's what I mean by hastiness. Like if it's gonna be good for you, and you know, you've thought, if you've been patient in thinking about it, now be impatient in taking action on it. That's kind of what I mean. Yeah. Maybe we can round out with something which we haven't covered in detail, which is just like, if people are at uni now, or they're going to uni, not in terms of regret, but just like, what do you think you could have done better or differently, you know, for people to learn from?
I think what I did well, which people should emulate, is not get sucked into the university life. Remember why you're going to uni. I know it's kind of like regret, but I didn't do this. Like, I didn't socialize much at university. I think I had the benefit of not having any Muslims there, and that was the clear age where I started practicing associated with Muslims, right? So immediately, like, the people I made quote unquote friends with were like the studious people, right? So the people that, like, I could tell were gonna do well, I just sat with them, you know, and I learned from them and whatever. Great. Surround yourself with those kind of people. You're there to get a degree. You're not there to, that's the primary reason anyway. You know, and he sort of, obviously because of Islam, and he sort of, you know, parties and all that stuff, I didn't go anywhere near. Obviously it's a bit too late for people that have already made this decision, but for myself, I stayed in the same city, right? If you can do the degree where your family are, whatever, you know, some people say you'll learn more life experience elsewhere. I sometimes feel like that's a distraction, you know, trying to juggle roommates and rent prices and side jobs and all this stuff. I feel like that's a bit of a distraction. I think being at home really benefited me in my studies because there wasn't too much of this sort of change in everything. I could still focus quite clearly on that. But everybody, you know, each to their own in that regard. What else? I mean, by the second and third year, bro, I realized like a lot of my course there wasn't really any need to go into the lectures. You know, I realized that. I think come up with systems that you can that will benefit you, right? I realized that when it came to exams, I'd always just look back at PowerPoints anyway. So I just started relying on taking notes of PowerPoints and producing my own notes and stuff like that, seeing what worked for me, come up with sort of ways of sort of revising. It depends on your course, like I said, but like one for me was like essay questions, right? Because I did sociology and criminology. There was like banks and banks of essay questions. So what I would do is take an essay question, write an essay to answer it, and I would literally just copy that essay time and time again. Until it was almost like it was memorized in my head. And that's how I did it at A-level. I remember like I was 1 mark off on A star at A-level because I used to just literally copy essay questions again and again and again, like the answers. Because there's always going to be a bank of references that you're going to use. And then when you're familiar with those references, that's it. You just pull them out whenever you need to, right? So that was for me. But I think ultimately, bro, everybody knows how to study. Everybody knows what's right for them in terms of studying. Everybody knows what works for them. I think it's the distractions that we have that we need to minimize. I think that's ultimately my ultimate message with it. It's it's too much socializing or too much partying or too much sort of mixing around with people or whatever. Not enough actually studying or being there with the mindset of I'm here to study. And that only really kicks in just before an exam. You need to have that all the time. You know, you need to remember why you're there all the time. And you know, you've got holidays for breaks, and you've got the weekend for breaks. But if you can dedicate all your time during the week, you can live life on the weekend completely sort of, free of any burden because you know you put the work in. You know, it's about that reward thing you were talking about earlier. Like, reward yourself on the holidays and the weekends by actually working properly, like that focused kind of work during the week. But anyway, I'm sure you've got more advice. You've studied more than me.
Well, the thing is that because I've been to uni 3 times, I did the whole uni thing differently, obviously the third time compared to the first time.
Yeah.
One thing I realized is you can usually do a 3-year degree in about 1.5 years in terms of the actual hours you put in, right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means you probably can't, ask your uni to do that for you. But what you can do is have more like contact hours. So I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and they were talking about these people that go into these crazy banking, or I think it's like management consulting jobs. where they're doing, yeah, it's banking mostly, I think, investment banking. That's the jobs where it's known they do like 80 hours a week. They get these fresh graduates and they just like destroy them in the first 2 years. Like 80 hours a week, every single week. People started like, they just go insane, some of them, right?
Yeah.
But what the guy was saying is that amount of contact hours, if you like, it's like 80 hours a week you're working, right? That is worth, in 1 year of doing that, it's like you did 2 hours normal thing, because normal would be like 40 hours, yeah? Or it's
2 years, you mean?
Sorry, 2 years, yeah. 2 years compared to the normal one. Or a lot of people, they don't actually work 40 hours, they work 25, like actual work. So it might be triple that, yeah? And he's like, look, you do that for 2 years. If you survive those 2 years, it's like you've got 4 years experience because of the contact hours. So I say that to say that what I wish I did is when I had only a few hours of lectures a day and the rest I was free, I would have chosen 1 or 2 things to add to my kind of commitments, whether that's volunteering, whether that's a job, whether that's some sort of business thing, whatever it is, whether it's hifz or something. I know that I could have fit that in, and I know that when you're forced to fit things in, you do fit them in. And so I kind of would do that if I was to go back and do a degree again, like a bachelor's degree, because I think masters are much more intense. But bachelor's degree, I would try and add a few other things so that I come out of uni not just with a degree, but I come out with like work experience or a portfolio or contacts or whatever it is. So I think I would do that differently. And in order to do that, you need to kind of learn how to be productive, and you have to learn how to be how to actually study. So that's another thing I would do, is I would like actually learn how to study. Like, you know what you're saying about essay answers, right? That sounded like what you were doing is like, what's it called, something recall, something like active recall. That's it.
Right.
Active recall, where you study by asking yourself questions rather than studying by reading notes. So the way it works is like you ask yourself a question and you try and answer it. If you can't answer it, you look at your notes and then you answer it. Then in 2 days time, you ask yourself the question again. If you get it right, you leave that now. If you get it wrong, you again go until you've done all the questions. And you know, basically the point is there are certain proven methods for how to learn that I just didn't know. And I still don't really know. But if I was to go back to uni or whatever, I would definitely use those techniques because it would make me way more efficient.
Yeah, no, definitely, bro.
I think those are like some of the main things, I think. In terms of being focused, like when you take on these extra commitments, you're going to have to like say no to some social things. But I still think you would be able to be free by like 7 p.m. or whatever. And like, in a way as well, it's like when you're young, you don't have family, it's like kind of like, who cares? Like just achieve a lot of things, because you know, when you're married and kids, it's like very different, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose there is an element of like, I think when you're young, there's an element of trying to impress people, and I think some people, it's a personality thing. Like some people carry on even to the ages that we're at of trying to impress other people. I think for us, me and you, maybe we're not so much like that. I definitely know it's not my focus at all. But then again, it could be on a subconscious level and I'm just not aware of it, right? But, you know, going back, I think I don't want to beat myself up at all, bro. I have to remind myself that I do have a lot of the things I always wanted, you know, if not more, bro. So I think that's really important. Gosh, there was some...
Yeah, like we don't know what would have been different if we implemented these changes. We don't know that, isn't it? It's just like for the young guns.
Yeah, I guess so. Absolutely, bro. Obviously, you know, everything's in the hands of Allah, bro. Take it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're sincere about wanting certain success or certain things, and ask Allah first and foremost to guide you to what's correct for you, to guide you to what's best for you, you know?
Yeah. You know what's interesting, actually? We were talking about peer group. The kind of people you spend time with will influence the person you become and the habits you pick up and whatever. It's interesting. When I was doing my first degree, bachelor's degree, everyone's like my age, right? Everyone's equally wasting time and stuff.
Yeah.
When I went to do master's degree, I was the youngest, like out of 80 people or something. I was the youngest, and it was like by 3 years or something. Like the second youngest was 3 years older than me. And a lot of people there had already had like 4 or 5 years of experience working. And now they're coming to specialize and do master's degree. So that was like very different in terms of the levels were just higher, bro. Like, and the also the seriousness and all of that. Like some of the people that were in the same course as me, they had like family and kids as well. So that made a big difference. And those are the kind of people also what you can learn from, you can get contacts from, you can network with. So maybe as well, that's something interesting. Like imagine you're 19, you're in second year of your degree, but you go and you join some sort of course, like, you know, sometimes colleges, unis, they have these like workshops or courses or one-off lectures. Imagine you have some sort of interest in whatever area, you start attending those, you start, you know, meeting people who are 29 and 39, and I think interesting things can happen from that.
I think, you know, speaking to you, I think I've just realized that, like me, I like to think me and you do things, productive things outside of our day job, right? And I've been doing that kind of stuff since uni, really. Since I started uni, I was trying my hand at different things, learning different skills, whatever it is, different businesses or different whatever. And I think I failed to recall that there's a lot of people that don't do that. There's a lot of people that just, you know, they go to school, they come out and that's it. Everything's free time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Or they do their job and then after that, everything's free time, you know? And I definitely did. I don't know, maybe it's through dissatisfaction or maybe it's an ambition to do more. I definitely have been always doing something else. There's always something, some other stuff that I'm doing. And I think the reason I haven't mentioned it is because it's so normal to me to have something else going on that I've forgotten that some people don't do that, you know? So I think that's really important. If you are somebody who isn't doing anything else after, you know, whether that's like a side hustle or whether, do you know what I mean? It's something as simple and basic as like buying and selling stuff on eBay, right? If you're not doing that, do it. Like, just expose yourself to that environment. Or if it's like a skill-based thing, you want to learn how to do something, to sell something, or give a service. You know, I've got a bit of graphic design stuff that I do, but that's just something I've been doing for years. And actually, the work I do now is so much better than the work I did 10 years ago, right? But it's just doing it. It's doing stuff. You know.
Well, we were not made, as they say, we were not made to go to work and go home and then go to work and then die, you know. We were made to worship Allah, and there are many ways of doing that. Absolutely.
Bro, it's been a blessed episode, bi'idhnillah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man.
Alhamdulillah. I hope people enjoyed the uni talk, because there was people that wanted to talk about the uni talk. I haven't checked the emails in a while. I probably should. I keep getting logged out. Oh, before I go, I just want to share this because I think everybody should. Oh, how do I share screen? Host disabled. Oh, don't worry about it.
I can enable it.
I can. It's not a big deal. I'll just talk about it. It's all right. You've enabled it already. This, bro. This is gonna be good.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson podcast with Mohamed Hijab.
They're filming it on the 8th of November.
Yeah.
So I don't know when it'll come out. But inshallah, this is good, bro. This would be a good one.
Well, knowing Mohamed Hijab will probably be out on the 8th as well.
We'll see, bro. But you know, I'm excited. I'm worried that there might be an agenda that, you know, and not, you know, I want a sincere agenda, because I'm assuming it's Jordan Peterson's podcast, right? So he's going to kind of chair the.
I thought it was the other way around.
Oh, I could be wrong. It says Jordan Peterson podcast, so I'm assuming it's his.
Yeah. Otherwise, okay, that does change things.
Yeah, because he might come with a loaded sort of like. Tell me why.
Mohamed Hijab will deal with all that.
Yeah,
right.
But it's just about the opportunity.
I was thinking that, you know, Jordan Peterson, with certain topics, he's very abstract and he won't give you any specific answers.
Yeah.
And there's good things about that in terms of sometimes he'll just say, I don't know, or I need to think about that more. That's fine. Yeah. But what I hope Mohamed Hijab does is press him on, you know, get some specifics out of him. Like, because I remember like him talking about, does he believe in God? And it's just like philosophy for 15 minutes. It's like, yes or no, you know? But anyway, yeah. The main thing I think here is, I don't know. What do you hope comes out of this? Let me ask you that.
I just want. I don't care about Jordan Peterson himself in that sense. I just see it as a good opportunity for Dawah for his platform. It was similar to the other podcast. I can't remember what they're called, the Three Muslims, or whatever. When they had Elliot Hulse on their show, and I was just like, oh, I wanted Elliot Hulse on Mind Heist, just so I could. Obviously, I don't feel like I am. I don't feel like I've got the ability to sort of give Dawah on that level to someone who's very strong in their beliefs or whatever. Like, how do I tackle that? Although, you know, there's people that are very close in some of their thinking, and I just want to be able to share the message of Islam, maybe not necessarily to them. Obviously, they can take it or leave it, but there's obviously a huge audience there that will many of them will be receptive to what Islam teaches, right?
You're right.
So that's where my excitement is.
Yes.
But as my kids are screaming in the background, I think we'll have to wrap it up.
Yeah. Inshallah, maybe we'll do listen to it when it comes out and we can discuss it, inshallah.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, as usual, go to mindheistpodcast.com if you want to contact us at all. And you can also, there's a video version of this on YouTube, and then there's audio version on podcast places. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. It was a pleasure, bro. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.